Hello, everyone. It's another day. It's a beautiful day today. I mean, it really couldn't get much better than this up north. Hot, sunny. Even though I just had to spend a good portion of the day in the office working, still thankful to be able to get out after work and walk and get outside. I mean, look, if you wanted to start back on a live check-in, what's up, brother? If you wanted to have the best of both worlds with regards to um, the nomad life. It is to travel with the weather. It really is to be a snowbird. Um, and we're going to get into that tonight. Tonight's going to be a relatively light topic, but still an informative one from the aspect of one of the biggest decisions you'll ever have to make in life um, with regards to buying property, rented property. But it's really not going to be like deep, uh, dark truths of life or anything like that. It's going to be more or less focused around renting versus buying, and just in a regular conforming way, meaning if you were going to rent or buy a house. And then also the conversation will go to how my life has evolved, the nomadic journey. Part of the nomadic journey, living mobile, that's a huge part of your decision making process, because when you live mobile, your biggest problem is parking. Not that there isn't legal parking out there, but it's a challenge to find it, and you have to come to that crossroads eventually. So that's what's going to be the center of the live feed tonight. But like we do every night, and what really makes it special is we're going to take everyone's live comment and we could talk about anything. We could talk about a deep, dark life truth and something you're struggling with. We can talk about anything. Let me get to some live comments, and then we'll go into the structured topic. Amara says, "Hey Sam, hey Amara, how are you? How you doing?" Try to put the windows down early tonight because it's hot, but I like it hot. I'm sweating. That you feel it feels good. A little bit of noise behind me, my major street behind me, but it's a good day. Hope you're doing good. Meadow Tales, the beautiful Meadow. Love and respect to Meadow. Let's see now. It's Tuesday evening, about 7:30 p.m. here. So that means in the Philippines, it's Wednesday morning, 7:30 a.m. And I know her work schedule. She's probably working hard because she's a hard worker, and she's got a picture of her cats somewhere on her desk. And Meadow, what do you dream about during the day? So which one of your life dreams, Meadow? I know you like to play music, but if you could share with me in a brief sentence or two, what are your life dreams? To have a family, to live in an RV, to be a hairdresser, to be a president. Which one of your life dreams? Stefan, cool morning, hot day. That's how I like it. That's what I'm talking about. Good evening to you, Sam. Good evening to you, Stefan. Thank you for all the great comments that you've been leaving. Susan Journey. Good evening, Sam and company. Yes, positive people, and that's what I like. Good vibes only. Chris, hey, Sam. What's up, brother? Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Love that saying. Forward, all caps. Totally agree. AJ, that's my guy from Arizona. Love and respect to Arizona. So in Arizona time, I'm in the Eastern Standard U.S. time zone. So in Arizona, they're 3 hours behind. So if it's 7:30 here, what does that mean? It's about 4:30 p.m. there. So magical thing. Janice, our musical creative arts person says, I own my own house outright, she says, and only pay taxes along with everything else, which means utilities, maintenance fees, etc. But with paying the taxes, it's much cheaper than rent around here. Well, that's true. I mean, that's part of the equation, that no matter how you cut the pie, no matter what part of the journey of your selection, whether rent, buy, travel continuously, there's a recurring cost. Let me get to Meadows' comment, and then we're going to get back to that. Meadows says, just a peaceful and simple life with people I love, Sammy, smiley face emoji, with my kitties. Meadow, that's one of the best dreams I ever heard. Thumbs up to you. I love that dream. Start back, stay hydrated. Start pack, that's why I need you here, brother. M93, hey Sam and all watching. M93, haven't seen you in a long time. Love and respect, M. Janice, 500 a month. Thank you for sharing that, Janice. So 500 a month for, now is that just for your taxes, or is that for your taxes, your average utility cost, and like rough maintenance cost? So in life, no matter how you cut the pie, you're always going to have some recurring bills, meaning bills that come up every month. Okay, we've talked about that in the past. Even if you have a paid off house, you're always going to have taxes, you're always going to have utility bills, you're always going to have maintenance costs. If you have a mortgage, then obviously, and if you still have a mortgage, which I would say 90% of society would still have a mortgage, only 10% really have their house paid off, then you're going to have to that's the biggest chunk of your monthly payment. Rent, all you do is pay one flat fee that does go up pretty much every year on average. Why does it go up? Because the landlord who owns that rental property, their taxes go up, their fees go up, so they pass that on to the end user, the renter. So no matter what you choose in life too, you have to be mindful that on average, your costs are always going to go up. That's what they call inflation. They're very rarely going to go down. And usually if they go down because there's bad economic times, then people lose their jobs, and there's a reason the price is going down, because there's no buyers in the market or renters in the market. And what I can say, first I want to talk about buying. That I've owned a property for 15 years, I've sold when I went through that process. Is it ever worth it to buy a property? And I'm going to lump all the properties together, whether it's a house, condo, raw piece of land, whatever. You have to understand that that's a very general statement, and everyone has their own individual life stances. So I am making somewhat of general statements, and you have to take that in context. But if I ask myself at this point in my life, is it worth it to buy? In my opinion, in my experience, I would say it's worth it to buy only if you fall in this category. You are married, you have at least one child, or you want to have a family, and you plan on staying in that location for at least 10 years. Now, if you're single and you were planning to stay in that area for at least 10 years, and down the road you have a dream of eventually finding a spouse and finding someone to share your life and have a family, that would apply to you too. So then if you fall into that category of basically someone who's committed to one area, you're committed to the fact that you do have a dream, you have a vision that you want to start a family, and you want to share your life with people in a very intimate way with having a family, then that's also buying is on the table. You're going to stay there for at least 10 years, you think, and you're going to want to start a family. Why is that important? Because the number one asset you have when you buy a house is the public school system rating. Okay? I owned a piece of property in one of the best public schools in the entire state of New Jersey. And what I can tell you is there's a couple key factors when you buy and sell property that affect your property value no matter how much renovations you do or don't do. And that's this: your public school system rating, your location. Your location meaning your proximity to a thriving city or local economy that has jobs. The public transportation that is within close proximity to what you're buying. So if you're within 45 minutes of New York City, you have a certain level of proximity. And if you have good public school system, certain proximity, all that plays a part. But your school system, your proximity to the local city that you're around, wherever that is in the country or world, and the economy around that area. And then it filters down to then the crime rates in that area, that plays a part. And different data points such as that. But those are pretty much it. That's the structure of buying a house. What's the rating on the public school system? What's the local economy like? What's your public transportation like around in that area? Other than a resort area like a vacation home, which is a little bit in a separate category, because a vacation home is going to fluctuate in value more rapidly based on how the economy is going. Because if the shit hits the fan and the economy takes a downturn, a vacation home will be harder to sell, because that's a second property for most people, or it's a property for retirees. It's not something that people are entrenched into that they need for their job. Look, most people need to work for a living. They're not retired. They're not millionaires. They have to work for a living. They have to feed themselves. Okay? So most people who have to work for a living, they have to have a house that is in somewhat of the area. They have to have some place they dwell of that job. Very few people, like I've always said on this channel, less than 1% of society is living mobile, fully mobile, meaning they have no physical structure they go back to. They have, they either work remotely or they have the flexibility to travel based on whatever job requirements they have, etc. So, renting. what's the pro and con to renting? I mean, you always hear the con is if you rent, you don't own anything, and you're just helping your landlord pay off their mortgage. That's true, but what you own is a higher level of flexibility and less liability. As an owner, you have less flexibility and you have more liability. As a renter, you have less liability and more flexibility. Meaning most leases are about a year long in term. Meaning that after a year, if the shit really hit the fan and you had bad neighbors that moved in, or if the neighborhood just wasn't to your pleasing anymore, or if you got a job transfer, no matter what the resale value of that property is, it doesn't matter to you, because the only connection that you have to that property is a lease term. And you have the flexibility that once that expires, you can get out of there and you can go anywhere in the world. When you own a property, it's not that easy. You have to make sure that one is, you get it on the market, you can sell it, and you can sell it for a price that you can get out under it, and then you have enough left after you sell it, and after you pay the real estate commissions, and after you pay any capital gains if you have any, then you have to buy somewhere else, because where are you going to live? Most people, less than 1% of society is going to live full-time mobile. It's just the way it is. There's 325 million people in the U.S., less than 3 million are living fully mobile, in my opinion, and what you could basically tell in the society. So you should rent if you plan on staying in an area less than 5 years. And if you are not ready to fully anchor into a community and you're not fully ready to dig roots down deep. The only really reason to buy is you like an area so much that you want to put roots down. Like I've shared before, when I sold my property that I had for 15 years, it was like ripping roots out of my soul. Even though I didn't want that property anymore, it was still that painful. And that's why many people get to retirement, they want to downsize, they want to move, but it's very hard mentally to get rid of a house that they grew up in, they raised their children in, they have, memories. It's an emotional attachment. Does emotional attachment matter? Damn right it does. So, that's the skew on renting. And then I'll evolve to the final point of my thing that I was processing in my own mind today, because that's how I pick these structured topics. I don't pick them, what's everyone going to like? I pick them based on what I'm going through in life and what my thoughts are. The final is for the people who are 1% of society, meaning they live fully mobile or they're thinking of it. You come to a certain point in your journey. Is a home base worth it? And I'm defining a home base as a physical piece of property that you own, whether if that property has a structure on it or whether it's just raw land. You are at a point in your nomadic journey that you still like to travel, but you're considering, is it worth it to have a piece of land that you can park to where? I mean, all the time. So what I've come to in my mind tonight, at this point, it'll change as it goes, but it's only worth it the same reason. If you found a community that you're ready to dig roots into and it matches up some of that criteria, because in a property, I mean, unless you're getting it for dirt cheap, and if you're getting it for dirt cheap, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, it's probably in a bad neighborhood with bad school systems, and it's cheap for a reason. A used car with a lot of mileage is cheap for a reason. A piece of property that's very low on the market is cheap for a reason. So is the home base worth it? I mean, you have to answer those questions. You have to answer, is it an area you want to dig roots? Do you feel that it will have some type of equity that it will build in over time? Not that equity, financial equity is always the end all be all. I've said that before. There's peace equity, there's life equity. You have to enjoy your life. It can't just be all dollars and cents. But you live a better quality life when you are being dollars and cents and you're living below your means. So I was looking today at a couple RV lots and mobile home communities in Florida. And there was one that was around $100,000 in Southeast Florida, nice community, one of the better public school districts in entire Florida. Florida has some of the worst public schools in the country. It's just the way it is. Research it for yourself. It's the trade-off. It's what it is. So a lot of the reason that is because it's just a transient state. It's a retiree state. It's a tourist state. It's not a state where a lot of people dig roots to live long term. It's a place where people go on vacation, where people retire when their kids are all grown, um, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all part of it. And, they don't have, they get their money from tourism. They don't have state tax. So state tax pays for public school system. It's a whole reason behind all that stuff. So, what I can say is, when I looked at this one property that was around for $100,000, I had called up, I'd called up the real estate agent, and she gave me, I asked for some metrics, what are the taxes, what are HOA fees, what's the requirement? It's in the HOA community, homeowners association community. Because you're either going to buy a single family house, or you're going to buy somewhere, it could be a single family too, that's in a homeowners association, that you give money each month in a collective pool in a community, and that money goes to funds common grounds, common community pools, whatever. And which I owned a condo, so I'm familiar with HOAs. So after I called her, I said, all right, it's a raw RV lot. They have full hookups, full utilities. Taxes were like $1,500 a month. HOA was a little over $200. And what's the restrictions around the RV? Some restrictions are you have to be at least a 10-year need. It has to be at least 20 feet long. It has to be whatever. And so I called up the homeowners association office, and I said, look, I'm looking at possibly purchasing a lot in this community. I'm in the very early researching stage. And what is the requirements regarding the type of RVs that you can park on your lot once you own it? And I go, does it have to be 10 years new? Does it have to be a Class A? Some only have to be Class A. Does it have to be a certain footage? And she goes, no, well, as long as it's not over 40 feet. I said, whoa. I said, I'm not looking for a big RV. I said, I'm not looking for something over 40 feet. I said, I'm looking for something as small as possible, like a 14-footer or something I would just put there. And she goes, well, a 14-footer, she goes, we wouldn't accept that. It has to be at least 18 foot. And then she goes, if you're going to, keep it here year round, you have to comply with certain local municipality rules. It has to be anchored down to the concrete, has to be have a certain wind rating because Florida has hurricanes. You have to comply with this, that, the other. You have to maintain a retaining wall that's by it. And she started to list all these different things that were required once you have the property. And the first thing my mind went to, it's like deciding to get married. And the engagement is, proposing, and the idea of being married is very enticing. But then after you go on your knee and you get married, or after you go on your knee and you give someone the ring, then all the planning of a wedding starts to take place. And you realize, make a mental note, people with loud cars and loud motorcycles, they're insecure. Just like you see with somebody with a fancy handbag, insecure. You hear somebody with a loud motorcycle, insecure. Why are you making all that noise? We know you got, a 1992 Honda Civic with a bad transmission. We know you got a Harley Davidson and you're retired and you still think like, you're a Charlie's Angel biker, but you're not. You got a wife and kid at home, but that's okay. All right. So what I would try to tell you is, after you propose, after you get engaged, you start to go, all right, well, I want to plan my wedding here. And you says, oh, who's going to be your bridesmaids? Who's going to be your groom? Who's going to be your best man? What are we going to do this? What are we going to do that? And all these different requirements start to get put on your soul that you have to comply with to make this wedding a success. And you're like, this is just a ceremony. This is just to close the deal. Then after that, I got to maintain all this shit. And so again, I felt pressure immediately talking to this HOA representative. She was totally nice, and I totally understood her rules. They were totally fair to some certain extent. But it's like, it goes back to that commitment, that mental commitment. Even if it's financially below your means, it's a mental commitment that just doesn't sit well with my spirit at this point. And I became anxious just talking to this lady. I said, look, you know what? Never mind. I'm not interested. Thank you, though. Blah, blah, blah. And then finally, I'll sum it up, and then we'll go to live comments. I know I'm long-winded tonight. Then I looked at a raw piece of property in a not-so-good public school district in a not-so-good neighborhood. And it was very cheap. I mean, not an issue. It was in a decent area close to the beach, but it's a bad neighborhood. And just a raw piece of land. So I called the lady, the real estate agent was very nice. And then I had to call the township. Because if you want to do something with land, you can't ask the real estate agent. That person is a middleman or a middle girl. You have to call the local township and get the rules and regulations based on how that piece of land is zoned and what you can do with that land. You can't just put a tiny home on most land. You can't just put an RV on most land. And it was a raw piece of land. It was just people were just parking their cars there. And I called the township, and they go, no, you can't just park your car there legally. Even if people are doing there now, if the township or if a neighbor ever complained, you have to build a house on that piece of property. It's not zoned for a RV. It's not zoned for just parking your car or van. He goes, you have to build a house. Technically, it's illegal to buy that property and just put an RV on it or whatever. It doesn't matter if you put utilities there. You have to have a physical structure. And I ran into that before when I was looking at tiny homes. And so it just goes back to one thing leads to another, leads to another. Then you got all these rules, then you got all these expenses, and then you end up right back into a state of misery. But you do alleviate the problem of if you want to stay in one area for a long period of time, you don't have to worry about parking. But I'd rather move somewhat frequently and spend money at campgrounds and do one-offs at Walmarts and rest stops at this point in my life rather than reinvest in property. It's just at this point, I mean, I still keep it up in the air, but it's a burden. Not to say it doesn't have a payoff sometimes. I've listed some of the reasons why. I want to document my thoughts. I want to share them. That's how I feel at this moment. That could evolve. For a single person living free, I mean, I think of Milano. I mean, I think at the next step, if you really wanted to do it, if you wanted to buy a Class B or Class C, you spend $60,000 or $70,000, and then you just go from campground to campground. And yeah, you waste a big chunk of money on an RV, but you're not tied down to a property. You still have your number one asset, which is flexibility. Now, right now, I mean, I got no issues with car living, and I like it. But I like to document my thoughts about this nomadic journey because that's part of it. And that's part of the evaluation that you always is going to be part of your decision-making process. And that's how I view buying property, renting property, also how I view from a nomadic lifestyle, living full-time mobile out of my Jeep for over a year, not having a quote-unquote home base, a physical property that I own. That's my thoughts on it as of today. And I still, right now, I always go back to, I can't beat my current setup with the amount of freedom and flexibility I have, the peace I have. At the end of the day, it's not like I'm lacking something. So we'll see. Now, the final part of that is I do sometimes think about, well, buying a piece of property as my mom gets really older, she can stay in that. And that's part of it. But I've also known some of the people that bought property for a spouse. They say, oh, I'm going to buy my property so my spouse can be happy. Usually a divorce happens when you buy a property that you don't want to buy, but you buy it for your spouse. You fix it all up, and then no one's happy. Then you resent each other, and then you spend the next 10 years or 5 years getting a divorce and trying to liquidate that property. I'm very cautious of buying a property to make someone else happy. Then I think if you were buying a property to make your spouse or for your mother or for a family member, I think you're better off renting. That's my opinion right now. Because I think if you rent, and if your elderly parent needs to go into a nursing home, you wouldn't have to worry about, why'd I buy this property? And if you weren't on the same page, if you didn't want to have a different house and you bought a house just to keep your spouse happy, I think that's going to end in resentment. Just like if you have a kid but your spouse didn't want a kid, I think eventually that ends up in disaster. So you got to be very cautious that anything you do in life, when you make a commitment, it's got to be because you want it. Now, if it has residual value from an equity standpoint, or if it has value from it will help someone you love, that's fine. But only with the understanding is that's a plus. That can't be the mandate. The mandate can't be you're buying it for someone else or to do something. Because I think, again, you're going to end up in that place of resentment, which I've ended up in life, and it's not a good place. You have to own your life, and that's how you're your best self. All right, guys, girls, and robots. Now I get to all the live comments. I know I'm long-winded tonight, but I have to be authentic to where I'm at in my journey, and I have to share from that place. I can't orchestrate a live feed all the time and make it specific to certain things, but That's what I'm feeling, and that's what we got. Now, back to the comments. Janice says $500 a month, and that's taxes. Hung up 1984. I rent my apartment. Love to hear this. I rent my apartment, which all caps I love, for $725. Utilities run me about $30 a month. Great comment. People often ask me, Sam, based on your budget, and like I said, I budget $2,500 a month to live full time out of my Jeep. Could I live on half of that? Yes, but not the way I want to live. I'm living below my means. I work for my living. No one gives me shit. So no one gives me any money. So if I want to have a budget of $5,000 a month, that's what I'll do, and I'll tell somebody to kick rocks. But I say all that to say, people have asked me, Sam, I think, a person can live in an apartment cheaper than the way you live out of your car, and it's true. A person could live in an apartment cheaper for how I live mobily. So again, the overall theme is always live below your means and then live however you want. But if you're below your means, it doesn't matter if you want an apartment or whatever. So a friend of mine asked me today, he goes, well, Sam, if there's too many restrictions around that RV a lot, why don't you just rent a condo? You can probably get one for around in a certain part, $700 a month. I don't have a peace about going into building, whether it's a condo, apartment, or even a house, as far as sleeping and living. It's just, I don't like it anymore. Some people understand that, some people don't. Some people understand, well, if you're going to go in an RV or if you're going to go in a car, what's the difference between going in a house? For me, it's a totally different thing. Once in a while, I visit a family member or a friend, and, they let me stay on their property for a day or so. And they say, Sam, look, I got empty rooms in the house. Come sleep. I don't want to. People don't understand that. I can't explain it, but some people understand that and some people don't. I still want to throw up when I think about sleeping in a house. Unless there's extreme weather or extreme circumstance, but that's an extreme small part of the year, a couple of weeks out of the year. So I'm willing to deal with, I'd rather just rent a hotel room for 2 weeks out of the year rather than own a house for 12 months out of the year just for extreme weather. But that's a great comment, hung up 1984, and I appreciate you sharing that, because if we're being honest about this conversation, there's many perspectives, there's many layers, and there's no one answer for everyone. There's a evaluation, there's a collective underlining truth to different aspects of it, but there's, everyone has their own journey. Excuse the noise, man. People are going crazy. Everybody's got their motorcycles out when it's nice, and they want to rev it up because they want to prove, they're tough. It's just sick, in my opinion. Rob Torrey, what's up, brother? What's up, Sam? Thanks for sharing your videos. Thank you for the positive comment. Very educational. Thank you. How long do you see yourself full-time in a Jeep? Great question for tonight's topic specifically. Well, I kind of just ran down where I'm thinking now, as now my job is fully remote. I'm only in the northern states now because I have to tie up some things for my job. But in a couple months, I'll be I still have to go to different states for certain things with my job. But definitely by next winter, I'll be fully transitioning down there. But I may still be a snowbird. I may still in the summer months travel up north, just because, again, that's the best of both worlds. My number one reason for wanting to be in Florida is because hot weather, and I need, for my physical and for my mental health, I need weather where I can go outside and walk on a consistent basis. And obviously in the winter, Florida is the warmest state on average in the entire United States. So in the winter, that's the best place to be. Even in the spring and fall. Now, the summer's a little bit tough. Why? Because it's the rainy season. It's the tropical season. And it doesn't rain necessarily all day, but it rains a good portion of the time. I've spent time in Florida in the summer, so I know what it is. And, that can bring a challenge to the main reason why I want to be by nice weather, because I want to get out and walk. Now, granted, it's nice weather right now in New Jersey, but the environment isn't as inspiring. The Jersey Shore has some nice areas, but it's not the Florida beaches. In my view, it's not as nice. And it's very crowded. So, but all right, back to your question. I got off track. I'm sorry. How long do I see myself living in my Jeep? I would say for at least the next 8 to 12 months. I mean, in one sense of my mind, I want to tell you right now, I don't see me stopping ever. And that may be the case. I may never stop. I may do this my entire life until I'm so old that I have no other choice but to find a different thing. I'm looking at home-based options, but my mind goes back to the fact I can't beat the simplicity and the freedom of my current setup. I can add certain things that would give me certain comforts, but they would also bring some complications and some headaches. So if anything, right now, for the next 8 to 12 months, I see no change. That could change tomorrow, but I see no change. And could I see myself doing this till in my 60s or 70s? Yes. Could I also see myself buying an RV lot or a raw piece of land? Yes. I mean, I'm looking at them now. I mean, I've been looking at them for over a year, but I haven't found one that gets me to where I want to be. And that's one of the reasons why I sold too. I knew I wanted to relocate to Florida as my home state. I want to spend most of my time there, and I will. Um, and the main reason is the weather and the environment. So part of the reason for me selling my house wasn't just to downsize. It was the relocation of states, and it was, that and live simply, all these different factors. And I really didn't know how car living was going to go. Uh, like I say, I put my house on the market with the thought process of eventually I'll buy something in Florida, but I'll just buy like a small beach condo down there. And then when I was looking at downsizing on YouTube, I saw people living in RVs. I thought about that, but then I said, oh, I have a Jeep Renegade. I can't tow anything pretty much with this. I'd have to get a bigger car, and then I have to get an RV, and then you have a less flexibility. And right now I didn't want all that aggravation. And so I saw people living out of their vans and cars. I said, well, I want to give that a shot. I'm young, et cetera, et cetera. I could try it now. And the first couple months were rocky. I said, well, maybe, I don't know. But after like 8 months, I said, man, I changed my life. Totally sustainable for me at this point and totally enjoyable. The minute it wouldn't be enjoyable or wouldn't be sustainable, I'd do something different. I'm not a stubborn person. I'm not somebody that I don't prove anything to anyone. But right now, I mean, that's kind of my thought process on that. I love it. Listed the reasons why I would think of changing, but I'm very cautious on changing anything right now. Angelina, hey, rents are expensive here in Tampa, but I can't afford a house either, laugh out loud. My plan right now is to rent and then move into a van or RV later. Yeah, I mean, when the economy is good, everything goes up. That's what they call inflation. Inflation is the economy is good. Now, again, if you don't have a job and if you're struggling in life, doesn't matter what people say. If the economy is good, you feel horrible. I've been there. So, but overall, in general terms, the economy is good. And so when the economy is good, everything goes up. House prices, rent prices, food, gas, that's called inflation. Now, eventually human nature is inflation goes so high and then eventually the bubble bursts and there's a reset and then it goes up and down, up and down. But, yeah, I mean, look, whether you rent, buy, or live in a van, I mean, always the core mindset has to be you living below your means. But there is a whole different way of living versus renting an apartment and living in a van. There is a certain level that has nothing to do with financial. It has everything to do with your mindset, okay? Because living mobile versus living in a house or an apartment, rent or buying, doesn't matter. It's a totally different mindset, totally different. Doesn't matter if you're retired, if you're young. You have to have the mindset of you like constant movement, you enjoy the adventure, you realize you're not going to have a certain routine. You have to be disciplined. I remember when I interviewed for the remote position, one of the requirements was like, look, when you work remotely, you have to really be disciplined because you have to keep a structured schedule to ensure that you're getting certain things done. Now, I knew I already had that. I mean, I lost 200 pounds in my life. I've done a lot of things. I know I have a level of discipline. I'm not perfect, et cetera, et cetera. But to do it well, again, unless you're going to be camped out on somebody's property long term, to be constantly moving, you have to have a level of discipline. You have to arrive late at wherever you're going, unless it's a campground. You have to wake up early, and you have to repeat that structure. You have to structure your own schedule because, when you wake up in a house or an apartment, you can be laxed because, there's no reason for you to move. And that's why a lot of people, they wake up late, they go to sleep late, and they don't move. They order in, they have food delivered to their house, they never get, and it's just their houses. Like I said, most people, they spend most of their time in their house, and they almost die in their house. I mean, they spend most of their days, most of their nights, everything is in their house, and they build a cocoon, and they raise their babies in that cocoon, and once in a while they go on vacation, and once in a while they get outside, but for the most part, that house is their, whether it's a sanctuary or a jail, it's one or the other, and that's where they're going to spend most of their time in life. I don't want to do that. Again, every time I'm indoors, especially in a house, I get uncomfortable. So I go back to saying that's part of a mindset for me. I'm not comfortable. I'm not happy. Does it matter if you're happy? It does matter. If you're not happy, you're not inspired. Now, are we happy all the time? Of course not, but you know what I'm saying. So that's my thoughts on that. Janice, been here 18 years. Yeah, that's rare. I mean, right now, the average statistic is someone only keeps their job for 4.5 years. Janice is from the generation where most people kept their jobs for 20, 30 years straight. They lived in the same town for 20, 30 years, and that's rare. Nowadays, most people change jobs every 5 years. Most people change houses every 5 years. Now that's a little premature. I would say you'd have to Google the house thing. I know the job thing is every 4.5 years people change jobs. Change houses, I would say on average, got to be between 7 and 10 years. So if you're going to change houses every 7 and 10 years, is it worth it to buy? I don't think so. I think you got to be somewhere for 15, 18, 20 years like Janice before it pays off. Now, I always say, a 30-year mortgage, you don't think about how long 30 years is. A 15-year mortgage, you don't think how long 15 years is. A 20-year RV payment, you don't think how long 20 years is. When you ever question how long something is, take 20 years and minus it by your current age and think about the mindset you had 20 years ago versus the mindset you had today. So if you're 60 now, 20 years ago when you were 40, did you want the same things you want now? No, so you just have to be mindful. And that's why, now I'm very cautious of getting back into any long-term payment structure because I finally freed myself of just about everything and my car's got a little bit left on it. And so I remember when I was looking at RV lots in the winter and I made a video about it in Florida, one person commented on my channel and goes, Sam, yeah, you can do that. You get a loan on it for $100,000. He goes, but then you're right back to the banks owning you. When you take out a loan, for 15, 20 years or even 5 years for a car, it doesn't seem long, but 5 years is a long time. If you're 35 now, I'm sure things were different 5 years ago when you were 30. Angelina, she was probably married in a totally different place in her life 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, she bought, maybe a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house thinking like, she was going to be with her husband forever, and that doesn't work out. Now, I don't mean to bring up a painful memory for Angelina or anyone. I'm just sharing, different things we've talked about in the past, how much life changes. And same thing, like, you buy a house, for your elderly parent. You think like that's going to be the end all be all. 5 years from now, they may be in a totally different place or even not around, God forbid. These are things you got to think of. Sometimes you may be better renting. And sometimes, maybe like me, which is rare, but maybe, you may be totally better off, totally mobile. If you have really limited things holding you down in life and you don't mind the movement. The movement is an issue. Everyone's different. These are my thoughts tonight. Janice. Oh, I read that. I'm sorry. Chris. Fortunately, my ex-wife lives in a good public school system for my son. Well, that's key. I do say that. Again, if you're going to own property, the public school system matters. One of the biggest criteria, especially in America. I know we have some people from across the world that watch this, but and taxes pay for public school systems. So here's the catch-22. If you have low property taxes, chances are you are in a bad public school system. If you have high property taxes, chances are you're in a good public school system. Why? Because property taxes pay for schools. They pay for the teacher's salary. They pay for, the school amenities, what the school has to offer. That's the bottom line. So yeah, you win when you have a good public school system because your child gets to go to quote unquote a good public school system, but you lose because you're going to pay high property. You're going to pay for that. Now, certainly there's some people that do homeschooling. So if you did that, then that wouldn't apply. But when you do homeschooling, you're going to be a single family income household. Okay, so then you have to sacrifice on your personal level. There's catch-22 there. Life is a series of trade-offs. But then, the public school system rating has a level of interest for you in the value of your property, but it doesn't necessarily always equate to your kid doing well. Hey, I was talking to somebody I know, he got kicked out of school 3 times when he was young because he's a high energy guy. Guy makes 6 figures now. I was the same way. I did what I had to do to pass because I knew school systems was part of the game and I had to get my degree. But I'm a high energy person. I'm not the type of person where I like to sit for 45 minutes, but I understand the game of life. But what I'm trying to tell you is there's plenty of people that go to good public school systems that don't end up doing well in life. They either fall in love with schooling, they get their bachelor's degree, then they get their master's. They love getting degrees, but they hate getting jobs. There's a type of people out there like that. It doesn't matter what school system they go to, they'll never get into the real world. Then there's certain type of people that they're just going to school and they're just going to college because they feel like they have to. They have no direction. Then they go for the wrong major, and then they have a huge college loan debt on their back the rest of their life, and then they never get ahead. So school has a value, but you have to always remember it's not the end all be all. I think the biggest thing that you have to offer your child is a loving home. I believe, in my opinion, that to a certain extent the school system matters, but if you had a loving household, not a perfect, but a loving household, your kid will figure it out. And maybe they won't figure out. There's a Cain and there's an Abel. Cain and Abel were two brothers, two siblings in the Bible that ended up living completely different lives. Household with two kids. They go to the same great public school system. One may be one may not grow up to be productive. And I know people that make high six figures and they're buried in debt. They have two homes, they have boats, they have this and that. So, you got to be careful. Just making more money is not always the answer either. All right, next question. Good job. Taffy? Hey, brother, how are you, man? I don't know how it is for other locations, but out here where I am, renting an apartment / house is literally the same cost as a mortgage, sometimes even more per month. I'm going to read his next comment, then I'm going to reply to it. Taffy says, guess that's the cost of flexibility of an apartment and less stress life comparing to owning. Good job, Taffy. Thank you. Good to see you, brother. Love and respect to Taffy. I got a lot of confidence in Taffy. I think he has a lot to offer in life, especially with his passion for mechanics. But yeah, Taffy goes back to that point that when you rent, your rent, especially in a good economy, can be just as much as a mortgage, but you don't have to put a down payment. Okay, most people rent because they don't have the money for a down payment for a house. When you buy a house, you need to have a down payment. The bare minimum would be like 3-5%, and then you're going to have a government-backed loan, a FHA loan, which I've had one of those. A FHA loan is a federally backed loan that you put less than 20% down and you pay what they call PMI insurance. So you pay your mortgage, you pay your interest, and then you pay a couple $100s a month, depending on how much the loan is, for insurance. All that's rolled into one. And so most people rent because they don't have the money. They don't even have 5% of the property value to put on a down payment, so they can't buy. Certainly most people don't have 20% down. If the average house costs $250,000, and that's now in New Jersey, in New York, some areas that won't even get you in the door. But let's just say national average, the housing cost is $250,000 per house. 20% of that is damn near $50,000. How many people have $50,000 in the bank to put down? Then after you put that down, you still should have at least 6 months worth of emergencies and savings. So really, you would need to have $75,000 in the savings account to buy a house with 20% down and everything else. And then your mortgage would be the same as a renter. But see, as a renter, you don't have to have $75,000 to put down and have an emergency fund. You're paying the same thing every month, but you never put $50,000 down. And when you get a loan, they want to know, I've gotten loans before from a bank, they want to know that you have enough to put down, and they're going to look at your savings account. They're going to make sure that you have enough for at least 6 months worth of savings, or else you won't get the loan. That's how the housing crisis happened back in 2007 in America, because many people were getting loans and they had just enough for the down payment and they had nothing in savings, and eventually they took on too much debt and the whole system collapsed. That was part of the reason. So, and think about it, right? Even if you only put 10% down for $250,000, that's $25,000. If you put 5% down, it's still $12,000. So bare minimum, you put 5% down basically on a $250,000 house. You need at least $12,000, and you really need $25,000. because you're also going to need that emergency fund saving. You're going to need to put 12, 15 grand down, and you're going to need the emergency fund, or else the bank won't give you the loan. So do most people have $25,000 in their savings account? I don't think so. Statistically, it's, averages show that 70 to 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So if you're living paycheck to paycheck, chances are you don't have that in the savings. So that's the reason why some people rent. But they gain that flexibility, right? So if they get laid off tomorrow, they can go and they can relocate to a land or to a place that has better job opportunity once their lease expired, or maybe some people rent month to month. So there's variables and why people rent, why they don't, what the pros and the cons are. So good comment, Taffy, and I just wanted to expand on that. Chris, I live and take care of my mother. We live in a central yet crime-riddled area of town. Yes. I mean, when you buy a property, you should Google, there's a lot of information online now, citydata.com or something like that, in the crime rates. Look, I've spent time in bad crime areas and great areas. Crime areas don't always show a clear picture of a community, because there's a lot of great people in high crime communities, but crime communities where there's high levels of crime, there's also, it's just, there's not a peace. There's not a peace. I mean, you're always looking over your shoulder. There's a different tension in the air. There's a different culture. There's a different environment. That matters. And the prices in communities reflect that it matters. Because anyone that's grew up in a bad area, they'll tell you their number one goal is to get out of that area. I don't know anyone that's grew up in a crime-ridden area that says their goal is to stay there. And everyone wants to get the hell out of there. So that's in everywhere. That's in big cities and that's in rural areas. I mean, again, and I believe Chris is from Georgia, so there's parts of the country that are very crime-ridden. There's parts of Florida that I looked in that are very country, but high crime. That matters. So you got to think about that. Billy Jackson. A bit off the topic. That's all right, brother. Anything you want to talk about, we talk about. Do you follow the MGTOW, ideas in dealing with the MILFs? That stands for men going their own ways. Do I follow that? No, I don't. I don't believe overall in that mindset of men going their own way. I believe one of the biggest blessings I've ever had in my life is a woman's perspective. So I am not bitter towards women. I thank God that I've dated certain women that have changed my life. Yes, there's been some bullshit I had to deal with. Yes, there's some bitter breakup. I mean, I've always been cool with everybody I broke up with. There's been some painful breakups, but I respect, and I know I'm a better person for having a woman's touch in my life. My mother and women I've dated, even ones that ended in a disaster, I am better off knowing women in my life. I'm a better, well-rounded man. I believe, this is my opinion, that men going their own way idea is rooted in bitterness and lack of accountability. Because every breakup that I've had, I knew who I was dealing with, okay? When you get in a relationship with somebody, you know who you're dealing with. Very rarely does somebody totally deceive you, very rarely. When you see Hello Kitty and you still go forward, it's your own fault. I mean, come on, let's be honest. All right, I don't get off track. What I'm trying to tell you is, you know what I'm saying. So, I mean, I'm joking, but you know what I'm saying. Even the girl I dated with Hello Kitty, she blessed my life. She blessed my life. So, look, I can lie to you and give you a big thing, but that's the truth. Now, why do I stay single then, Sam, if they blessed your life? Because I'm refined. I'm good now. Like, I saw what I needed to see at that time in my life, and I thank God I saw it. But I also know, for me, knowing myself well, middle age, at almost 30, I'll be 38 in a week, knowing myself and not just seeing lust and not just seeing an idea of a relationship. I know what a relationship requires and what's after sex. Sex is a very small percentage of a relationship, less than 10%. You think about it, you get in a relationship with somebody, sex is going to be less than 10, 20% of the relationship. So Chris Rock did a whole skit about that, especially the longer you're with them, the more you're going out to eat, the less you're having sex. So you can't base it on that. All right, back to the subject though. But, I just like being single. The same reason why I live, why I don't want to own a property. I mean, it's like getting married. I told you, I gave you that parable. Like when I started to call that, when I started looking to buying that RV lot today, and I was just doing preliminary research, I started to get so much anxiety. I said, this is why I don't want a property. Same thing like when I was in Starbucks and I saw that girl taking a long ass time to figure out what she wanted to order. I said, oh, this is why I'm single. I don't want to deal with that. And so I don't follow their mindset. I understand their mindset, but I don't agree with it. I do believe that for many people, they're better off being single. But I do believe for some people, they're not better off being single because they will destroy themselves. They'll drink themselves into a slumber. They need to be around people. They're not good to spend a lot of time by themselves. But I know some people that they have to spend a lot of time by themselves, and they only emotionally manipulate or use people when they want an emotional high, but they know that they're not meant to have children. They're not meant to have a committed relationship because they like their freedom. They like to be a free bird. I like to be a free bird. I don't want to be tied down. So good question, Billy, and you know it's always love and respect to Tampa. Love and respect. Billy, laugh out loud. Not that different marrying is versus dating. Yes, now for a while in my early 30s when I knew I didn't want to marry, but I still thought I wanted to date. Dating, you can only do that so long because it's an emotional tax on your soul. It's fun initially for the first few dates, but it has to lead somewhere. And it always leads to a disaster because either you're going to catch feelings or they're going to catch feelings. And if you really know that you don't have the type of personality where you want to deal with a relationship, you're just playing with fire. It's not something you want. Like, I want to live free, so I was willing for the past year and a half to be uncomfortable in the middle of the winter in my car. I was willing to be hot in the summer. I was willing to deal with a lot of movement because I wanted it. When you want something, you'll deal with the adverse part of it. When you don't want something, the minute there's an uncomfortable moment, you're fucking out of there. And that's how I am with a relationship. The minute it gets like fucking just a little bit, I'm out of there. So I know I shouldn't be in one. And the same thing, like there's people all the time that private message me or leave me a comment. What do you do when it's hot? What do you do when it's cold? If you ask me that question, you shouldn't even be thinking of living in a car because it's going to be uncomfortable. That's the hard, honest truth. Unless you're going to have a full-blown RV. If you're going to live off the grid, just out of it, it's going to get hot and it's going to get cold unless you fully travel with the weather. But if you're not going to fully travel, don't even get in the game because it's going to get uncomfortable. You're going to have to move constantly. If you don't have that mindset, it's not that you're wrong. It's just that that's not you. And as soon as it gets uncomfortable for you, you're going to resent the fact that you got out of your house and you're going to look to get back to one. And these are my thoughts. Good questions. Angelina, the only thing that worries me about renting forever is dealing with the housing in old age. I think I would not want to buy a trailer outright by that time. That's true, but even when you buy a trailer, you're going to have fixed costs with taxes. You're going to have fixed costs with other things. Look at Janice. She's older. She's given her testimony. She's in her late 60s. She owns her house outright. She pays $500 in taxes. She has utilities, bills, and maintenance. So her average cost per month probably ends up at between $700 to $800 per month. That's the same thing. There was one person that just rents an apartment right now. They pay $725 a month. So whether you rent or when you buy, even if you own that property outright, you have the same cost. Like I said, the only difference with buying is you have equity in it over time. So after 18 years of owning it, if you wanted to sell it, you'd be able to cash out. That's the only benefit. But your monthly payment is going to be the same. So you're not going to worry less. You're going to have the same. And let me tell you something. In my life experience, when you're in your 60s, 70s, and 80s, you ain't selling property. You'll never sell. So your fixed payment is always going to be your taxes plus your utilities plus your HOA. Because at 70 years old, you don't have the mental stamina to sell a property, to throw shit out, to move from rest area to rest area. You don't. That's the bottom line. I can lie to you. On average, there may be one-off exceptions, but very rare. And so you can't get scared because of that, because that's going to always be whether you rent or when you own. So if you know you're not in a position to own, don't own. Because your costs are going to be the same. The only thing you gain is you build equity over time if it's in a decent area and if you catch the economy at the right wave. Because if the economy crashes, which can happen, and if you can't endure that, then it doesn't matter even if it's in all those areas. Good thought. Hydration break, and then we'll get back to the questions. Forgive me if I say the name wrong. K. Buchan. I like that name. Hey, buying to live in, then use as a rental income as it appreciates. Well, total throw up emoji. That's, in my opinion, love and respect you. My mom owned a multifamily house that she rented out. She still rents out. Complete disaster. Was part of the reason she got a divorce. The maintenance never stops. There's always an issue. Tenants move in, tenants move out. There's always a maintenance problem. You have a high liability. There's insurance. Huge mental and financial burden. Very rarely do I see anyone. I know many people in life that own rental properties. Only a small percentage of them actually make out financially, and they pay a cost in their relationships and in their mental health. That being said, there is a percentage of people that have a passion for being a landlord. I want to be clear, when you sign up to be a landlord, you're taking on a job. You're not just getting free money to pay off your mortgage. A landlord is a job. And even if you have a property manager, you are the CEO. So even if that property manager takes care of that property for you, they have to come to the CEO to get the check cut. And that's a mental tax. So if you want to be a landlord, meaning you want the job as a landlord, then that's an option. But if you don't want another job in life, don't rent out property. That's my actual life experience in my own family and in the families I've seen. I've seen a couple exceptions, so I'm leaving that as a caveat. But I've seen the average of it's a complete disaster, in my opinion. Thank you for the comment, K. Buchan. Good comment. Susan, my situation is that I live in a very rural area. Thus, a property of 290 acres, no livable house. I plan on van camping and taking road trips when I want. Property is paid, but still have tax. Yep. Thank you, Susan. Great comment. I'll let that speak for itself because good job, Susan. Amaria, I own my home outright, but I want to sell and go mobile. My fear is that inflation will eat up my resulting cash. I don't trust the stock market, and I don't want to park my money there. That's the problem. You get to your older point in life, you're blessed if you have equity in your house, but then you're scared to sell it because there's no easy option. And the older you are, the less mental capacity you have, physical endurance you have, and the scarier changes. That's the key. The older you get, the scarier change gets. And let me tell you something, living mobile, especially in the beginning, very scary because there's no constant. There's no constant. Every day is different until you form over a course of a year routines and habits. It takes a whole year to figure that out. You can do it. I'm not speaking fear, but I'm speaking this is why most people, even when they're in a position of being elderly, having equity, having their house pay off, they're not going to sell their house and live on the road. They're not. It's too much of a tax on their spirit. You have to consider all things. You can do anything you want. I want to be very clear. I don't want to discourage anyone from anything. You can do anything you want, and you should have confidence in yourself. But this is just a thorough conversation and my thoughts on this very important topic. K. Buchan. Susan Merrick, good. K. Buchan. Chris. Liz, where is this property? In Florida, southeast. I'm looking anywhere from Juno Beach to Fort Pierce, that chunk of area. Port St. Lucie, things like that. Stefan, I vow to never take a loan out on anything anymore. Not for a house, car, or anything. If I can't pay for it outright, then I can't have it. That's part of the decision-making process too. Now, when you pay cash for something, I mean, unless it's going to be a raw piece of land for less than $10,000, you're going to deplete your biggest asset, which is your savings. Your savings is your biggest cushion in this world. God forbid an emergency happens. And when you put a huge bit down on a house or a property, or you get stuck in payments, that's your biggest asset, your biggest money earn. It's tough. It's tough. I don't want to get lost in the woods on that, but I hear you, and that's a huge part of the decision-making process. Good comment. Thank you, Steph. Patience is the key. Hey, brother. Hey, Sam. Camped overnight 2 nights, and it was a success. Good. Patience. Patience was just doing. He's not living full-time mobile, but he was camping. Oh, he was thinking this week he was going to, for the first time, camp out in his car. Where did you go? Did you go to rest area, campground, or Walmart? If you want to share. Patience key. Hey, Liz, what about tiny house on wheels? No good. Tiny house on wheels is just an RV. So don't forget that. You have to worry about land restriction. And it's an RV. You have to park it somewhere. And so you have to have hookups or else it's nothing. It's a tiny home on wheels is just an RV that's labeled tiny home. You have to look at it in the same manner. So the same issues you have with an RV, you have to have a tow vehicle, you have to have an RV park or a piece of land that you can legally park it on, you have to have hookups, you have utility bills. Unless you're going to boondock, which you're going to live off the grid like me, then you're in the same boat that you're back to parking. You have to go to campgrounds, you have to go to Walmart, you have to go to rest areas, and then you have to mix that in, or you have to go to a family member's house. So that's my thoughts. Thank you, Liz. Adventures in Vancouver. Love and respect to our Canadian brothers and sisters. What is the steering wheel on the right side of the car? Is this an image reverse? Looks different than your earlier videos. It's been the area that I've been parking in. A couple people said that to me, but it's still on the same side. It may just be the way I'm parked, but thank you, brother. Good to see you. Love and respect to Canada. Chris, Stefan, at Stefan, my thoughts exactly. Taffy, on your free time, can you watch a video on the channel called Fast Lane Truck? I will. About the Nissan Recon camper van. I'll check that out, brother. It's a video about a camper van Nissan will sell soon. Curious what you think about it. I will. I'll make a note about that, Taffy. Good job, brother. You know what I was looking at? I mentioned this in the past. If you YouTube search Japanese RVs, Asian RVs, they make small little cute RVs that are like van conversions that they don't sell in the U.S. Probably because the price. I mean, Class Bs are totally overpriced, man. I mean, I was looking at a couple today, new ones. I mean, they're all like $100,000 and totally overpriced. You know, so I'm going to take a look at that Recon camper. I think one of my friends may have told me about that once, but I never really looked into it. I'll take a look at that, brother. Thank you, Taffy. Steph, I think it's because he's using the camera on the screen side of the phone, resulting in an mirror image. If not, I think Sam changed a setting on his phone unknowingly. Well, I did. My camera is set up the same as always, and I didn't change a setting. The only difference is I'm parked at a different angle. So I don't know why that makes a difference. Like usually I'm parked in a different direction. So that's the illusion. So usually, like, what am I parked now facing? I am parked now compass facing southeast. Usually my front of my vehicle is faced northwest. So that difference is maybe the illusion. Liz, same area, Southeast Florida. Yep. Janice, monthly rental in a parking garage. That's an option. I mean, I was trying to find some commercial properties that maybe just have like you know, sometimes contractors buy certain lots and they just have like a garage there for their vehicles or something. I was looking for that, but they're hard to find. But I'll continue to look. I mean, if I could find something like that for decent, that's all I would really want. But they're not easy to find, and they're usually price associated. But that's a good option. I've been thinking about that. Taffy, just wanted to add that the Nissan Recon van is actually shorter than the Toyota Camry, really? And will be 45K. Well, that's not that bad, though. I believe it's very practical and easy to park. Well, Taffy, good comment. I'm going to look into that. The only problem with that is, I mean, I guess it has full hookups. That's the win. But if not, why not just get a Nissan NV200 for like $20,000 and just live out of that? I'm sure the Recon has more amenities. And the full hookups is probably the advantage there. But that's not bad. For under 50, not bad, not bad. I'll check that out, brother. Liz, that way has increased South Florida. I think I will end up living in my car too. I'm still here because of work. I mean, the problem with that is as I get more and more down there, there's South Florida, unless you go inland in remote areas to camp, which I've done, the parking is very challenging. So it's a huge issue down there. So, you know, that's what, you know, there's a need if you're going to spend a lot of time down there, either for a home base or a lot of movement. What I've done in the past is just a lot of movement. So you just have to be mindful of that. Chris, thanks as always, Sam. Got to visit my mom. Love and respect to your mom, and let us all keep Chris and his mom in prayers as he deals with that. I will check out the replay later. Thank you, brother. Always great to see you. Good evening, everyone. Peace and love forward. Good job. Ventures Vancouver. Ever consider a cargo hitch carrier for extra storage? They are around $150 and can carry 500 pounds. No, I haven't. Reason being, I don't want to store anything. I have everything I need. That's just me personally. So if I wanted to store stuff, then I would keep it, but I don't want storage. I don't want anything else. I don't want any other physical possessions. I don't need them. I like living light, but that's just me. Doesn't mean that has to apply to everyone. That's for me. I don't like storage units. I don't like storing things, and I don't want any more. I got enough clothes. I got enough everything. Like if I wanted like more stuff, I would no problem buying it. But I just don't want it. That's for me. Like some people get RVs and then they get like a scooter and they put it on the back or something. Like I don't want any of that. That's just for me though. Ryan B. What's up, Mr. Sam? What's up to you, brother? Just got off the hustle. I'm not mad at that. Good job showing up. Every time you show up to your job, you overcome. Good job. K. Buchan. Were you traumatized in the stationary abode? I don't know what that means. Janice. Have to move on. Might be back. Janice, that's okay. Love and respect. Mark, what's up, brother? Hey, Sammy, I live in Tampa. Question: how are you going to stay cool in the summer if it get real hot in the summer? Well, I've already done a summer in the northern states. It was last year during the summer. It was like 3 weeks. It was around 100 degrees during the day, 75 at night. Now I know the Florida heat is a little bit different. I've been to Florida in the winter, in the summer, and the winter both. So it's uncomfortable. That's the answer. I survived winters, 2 winters in New Jersey. It was 0 below this winter. It's harder to live in your car at 0 below with no heat than it is in the summer, hot and humid. And I got very sick this winter. I mean, so what I can tell you is I've already survived in extreme weather. I paid, pay a price for it, sacrifice. But that's what eventually, if I buy a home base to alleviate that problem, that may be an issue. But we'll see. I mean, I have the flexibility that when there's extreme weather, I can get a hotel room, which I did do once I got sick this weekend, or I can go visit a family member. I had friends in Florida that, I know people that live in Florida. They said, Sam, look, why don't you come to my house? I'd never taken up anyone on that offer. But, I mean, I know people. I just like being by myself. So, that kind of answers that question. But it's a good question, Doug. Good evening, Sam. Love and respect. Great points on the mobile lifestyle. Great points about those Cancuned in a house. I own a house, but I get out and see the world around me. I need to. Yeah, I definitely believe for your mental health, you have to get out. I believe it is harmful to your mind to stay in your house. What is one of the harshest punishments given in prison? Solitary confinement. What is solitary confinement? You're locked up in a cell with limited or no sunlight, and you have limited time in the yard, limited time outside. That's a punishment on you. And it's a huge mental punishment. So many people confine themselves to solitary confinement in their house. It's a mental, unhealthy thing. Got to be very mindful of that. Ryan B. Getting a car loan with 5 years of payment freaks me out. I can't even imagine a 20-year loan. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had 5-year loan car payments. And I mean, more and more as I get older, and now that I'm freeing myself of financial obligations, I am very leery to get back to any long-term commitments. Why? Because once your spirit gets free, it's hard to go back in bondage. Because I hear that. Doug, looking back in terms of years, I graduated from high school, he says, in 37 years ago. He graduated college 31 years ago. I have been back in New Mexico for 9 years. That brother loves New Mexico. Time flies. That's true. Doug, take it from this old fart. Love to you, brother. Life here, this is wisdom now. Everyone should listen. Doug says, life comes down to what you are willing and not willing to do. Do your standards get in the way of success? I know many who won't work certain jobs. Doug, great comment. Always love having you, brother. Great job. Ricardo, love and respect to my brother Ricardo. Love and respect to PR. Did you see PR? They announced today, like Puerto Rico, I think like almost 4,600 people died from the Hurricane Irma last year. Like that was like 70 times more than what they originally estimated. I don't know how true that statistic is, but I was reading that today in an article. That's a lot of people that passed away in PR, man, from Puerto Rico from that hurricane. What's up, Sam? How's love and respect too? Though still a lot of people in Puerto Rico that I know, whether it's through friends or whatever, that it's still a lot of hardship over there, man. And love and respect to Puerto Rico, man. Again, everyone in Puerto Rico, man, American citizens, never forget that. Sam, how's your day? Going good. I'm sorry. What's up, Sam? How's your day going? Still looking for another job, applied a couple places and followed up on other jobs. So we'll see, but a little bit stressed out trying to stay positive. I understand that. Also, I would recommend going in the store. Like there's plenty of stores I see. Like, I don't know where you're at completely, but I feel like I just went to a supermarket and there was a sign like help wanted. Walmart sign help wanted. Pizzeria. I worked at a pizzeria. I delivered pizzas for about a year when times were rough. There was just a sign in the window that said help wanted. How do you get, and I remember somebody saying, how do you get that job? You got a heartbeat? Some people, if you got a heartbeat, they'll hire you. They're just looking for a body. So you have to keep your mind open to that too. Doug, Ricardo, keep positive, brother. That's right. Do not beat yourself up. I totally agree with that. Keep plugging each day. That's right. We love Ricardo. You will, all caps, find work. Good job, Doug. Ryan B. My ex was obsessed with Hello Kitty. I've been there, brother. Ain't going back, but it's all love and respect. Ryan B. I saw somebody with Hello Kitty today, almost had a heart attack. God forbid. Ryan B. The more popular living in a car gets, the technology advances will make car living more comfortable. I agree with that. It's bound to happen, in my opinion. I agree, Ryan B, to a certain extent. But you have to understand most people are going to have a family with children. So if you have a family with children, most people, car living, RV living, mobile living is not practical. You're not going to raise for most people. You're not going to raise a family. You're not going to. Most people have to put them in a public school system. So you're not going to, So it's not going to be even with technology. Now, long term, maybe if you say like 50, 100 years out, then yes, that I agree. But within the next 10 years, 20 years, no. Because again, now in 100 years, yes. Because look at 100 years ago. 100 years ago, I don't even think maybe the telephone, not even that. So, yeah, but that's 100 years, we'll all be dead. So 2 generations from now, 3 generations from now, maybe. But in the next 30 years, not really. Not towards the tail end of that 30, in my opinion, for most people. Doug, I have a belief. I don't do things my way. I consult with my wife, well, that's wisdom if you're married, to do things the best way, the first time. It has saved me so much time and money and worry. Well, I definitely agree with that. Look, if you're going to get married, get an agreement with your spouse. And if you can't get an agreement, get a divorce. That's the bottom line. Don't make it overcomplicated. Milano? What about Bob Wells? He's 70 plus, right? Now, that brother's only like 59, and he bought property in Arizona, I believe. He said that recently in one of his live streams. He's bought property, he said, for that reason, his old age. Yeah, that brother's, I think he's only like 60, man. He's just not taking care of himself well. So it's a shame, but, now, again, I knew a guy, I still watch a guy, he's 72, he lives in this RV, and he's in New Mexico now. He's in Campiton, New Mexico. Rusty, great guy, I love it, he inspired me. He's renting at an RV park right now. He lives out of his class, he has a travel trailer at a 14-foot 16-foot travel trailer. He's renting RV lot in Capitan, New Mexico for about $200 a month. He owns a piece of property in Texas, but he doesn't want to be there in the summer. So he rents so that's the thing. Like right now, let's say you had no home base, but you wanted to go to New Mexico, you can rent an RV lot for $200 a month. Now it's in the middle of nowhere. You may not want to live there. That's the thing. But it's all relative. Ricardo. Thanks, Rio. Love to you, Ricardo. Patience is the key. Walmart the first night and then rest area for the second night. Okay, that's smart. First night was rough. Totally agree with that. It always is. But the second night went well, and I got good sleep. Patience, I'm proud of you, brother, man. Thumbs up to you. Good job. Hey, Aubrey. Hey, Glam Gypsy. Love and respect. Can't wave back to you. Milano. Sammy in Fort Pierce out of 995 is gas station. There you can park for $5 a day. Okay, I didn't know that. They have bath and laundry. I'm going to check that out. Now, I like Fort Pierce by A1A. Now, I got to be honest with you guys, though. When you get inland on Fort Pierce, there's a lot of crime in that area. And so it's a little suspect. Great area overall. The area A1A is absolutely beautiful. That stretch that goes all the way down Samson Beach, beautiful area. I love it. I like that area, but I'm conscious of, I looked at some property in that area. There's a reason it was cheap. High crime in that area, based on the statistics and based on the different research that I've done on there and travel that I've actually been there. But also too, there's a great, when I was going to go for Cuban coffee, there's a great Cuban coffee spot right off Route 1. I forgot the name of it. I didn't go in there, but when I Googled it, Milano, when I was down in Florida last time, I was going to get some Cuban coffee from there. I forgot the name of it. You may know it. It's right off Route 1 there. I forgot the Cuban coffee spot, but this is authentic, supposedly. Cape Buchan, stationary. Cape Buchan house. Yeah, I had a traumatic experience with my house. I mean, I enjoyed my condo that I owned in the beginning, but the last 3 years of owning my house, I knew I was done. Because, after my dog passed away, and then after, I lived with my dog in my house for most of the time there. For the first year, it was just a bachelor pad. I had girls in that area. I had a girl living with me for about 6 months. Then I just used it as a bachelor pad. Then I bought a dog, and my dog lived for 10 years, and that was a great time there. Then after my dog passed, I know I didn't want to get another dog. Dogs are great, but they're too much work. It took a toll on my soul. For me, like, my dog was my wife, and once my wife passed away, I don't get another wife. That's how I am. Some people don't agree with that. I don't care. And so, I know, the connection I have with my dog, she's passed away. I can't put myself through that again. I don't want to, and I'm done with all the work that requires to do it right. And So then I was like, if I'm not gonna get another dog, if I'm not gonna get married, if I'm not gonna have kids, why do I have this big ass condo? It wasn't even that big, but why am I doing all this? It's just, it doesn't make sense. And that's when I looked at downsizing, and that's when eventually it evolved into a mobile lifestyle. Abel, wow, that's a super true about that. I stay in my RV the whole day. Thanks for the advice, bro. Abel, good to see you, man. Thank you for the comment, brother. Love and respect to you, man. If you want to answer, what type of RV do you have? Class A, B, travel trailer? Patience is the key. There is nothing like paying cash for things up front, like a car, and not having worry about it and dealing with the burden of banks and extra money, etc. That's true, but then to a certain extent too, I mean, if you're really getting heavy into finances, sometimes it's good to leverage, take out loans, especially if you're going to do it under businesses, because then if God forbid it goes belly up, you can bankrupt, or you can use it as a depreciating write-off. Look, when you get into big money, it's all about leveraging up. That's what Trump's done. That's what all publicly traded companies do. You leverage up, you limit your liability, and if shit really hits the fan, you bankrupt. That's what they do. That's what the big money game is. Now, am I recommending that for most people? No. Most people just live a simple life, and you're going to be very happy living below your means. But I also have to make that as a caveat. That's part of life too. If you really get into heavy financing, part of it is you leverage up, but that's not recommended in a lot of cases. But Vivo, hey Nomad, blessings to you. Blessings to you also. Thank you, Vivo. Patience is the key. There are times we need to swallow our pride and work a job that pays less to take. I've done that. Yep, I agree. That next step is a better step. I agree. Like I said, I worked in a CD store. I've delivered pizzas, painted houses, did a lot of different things, and stay productive, and something else will better come up. I agree with that. Repeat. 74. What's up, Sammy? What's up to you, brother? Doug. Sam and everyone watching. Have a good evening. Love to you, brother. Love to New Mexico. I love your passion for it. Keep positive. Yes. Every day you make progress. Yes. Towards your goals, even if you can't see them. Good job, Doug. I love you, and I appreciate having you here. Oh, Gilbert. Evening, everyone. Evening, Sammy. Love and respect to you, Gilbert. Always good to see you, brother. Love to you. Patience. No one should ever be ashamed of working in retail. That's right. Or fast food. That's right. A job is a job. That's right. And blessed. And we are blessed to be working and making an honest living and then forward. I totally agree. Abel. I currently live in an RV/car. I really look up to your advice. Thank you, brother. I binge on your videos. Thank you. And really made me think about everything, man. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Especially out here in Cali. Love and respect to the West Coast. Love and respect to my guy Lou, who's also full-time and working at Walmart full-time and living in his, I forgot what kind of car he's got, old beat-up car, but that brother's positive, man. Love and respect to Lou. Love and respect to Cali. Got kicked out of my apartment. Well, I understand. Love to you, brother. And yeah, shout out to my guy Lou too, man. He had got through a bad relationship. That's why I preach mind, body, and soul. A lot of people that get into this lifestyle, they've experienced a hardship in life, whether it's financial or emotional, and they just got tired of life. So to heal, they got very minimalistic. And I think that's wisdom. Now, I've healed in my life, and I stay here because I'm just enjoying my life. But some people, they just get into the nomadic life because they just got to go through a season of healing. So everyone's different, and everything evolves. But that's a good comment, brother. Susan, Bob Wells is 62. Thank you, Susan. I didn't know that age. Thank you. Patience is the key. Hey, Gilbert. Abel, literally starting from scratch is tough. Totally agree with that. Love and grace to you, brother. You're going forward, though. Gilbert. Hey, patient, right back at you. Gilbert, it's me, Sammy. You keep going in and out. I'm sorry, brother. I think it's you on, but I don't know. It may be you or maybe me. I don't know. I can't tell when I do the live feed. Patience is the key. Thank you, Gilbert. And yeah, it happens sometimes with the live streams. Yep. Can't help that. Patience got to refresh. Rattle down. Hey, rattle down. Camped in the back of the pickup this weekend. No topper, yet such a bit windy, nice and peaceful through the desert. Well, and forgive me if I'm saying the name wrong. Rattle, lay it down. One is love and respect to you, because I know you've left several comments and I know you've shared with me your story. So I just want to say love and respect to you, and I appreciate you. And then also thank you for sharing. So, she camped in the back of a pickup this weekend, and it was peaceful. It was windy, but peaceful. That's the part of the desert. Yeah, it's windy. Like the guy I watched, Rusty, he's in New Mexico, and that's what he says in the desert land. It's windy. But thank you, Rattle Down. Thank you for sharing your experience, and thank you for sharing your life. I respect that, and I appreciate that, and I want you to go forward, and we go forward. Kibukin, thank you for answering my question. No problem. Thank you, Kibukin. Patience is the key. Abel, stay strong. That's right. Vivo, 2018 travel, 80,000 or 400 per month. Yeah, I did a video on that. What do you think about that for a single woman? Well, there's so many variables, right? Your economic situation, your family situation. If you're single and if you have the money, $408 a month, I think that's over 20 years and putting 10% down. So 10% after taxes, you'd have to, 10% is 8,000 after taxes. You're going to have 10,000 down, $408 a month for 20 years. How old are you now? Add 20. That's a long time. And then there's nothing wrong with that if it falls below your means. Okay, so if that financial equation is below your means, then that checks off that box. The next box you have to answer is, are you willing to be a traveler? A traveler, your biggest problem is parking. It doesn't matter if you have a car or $80,000 RV. So are you going to stay in campgrounds? And again, the financial part of staying in campgrounds or renting an RV park, is it financially living below your means? And do you like constant movement? Do you like hooking up gray tanks, black tanks, dumping stations? Do you like, mechanical issues? Because mechanical issues will arise. If that's not fully you, then I wouldn't do it just based on the dream. But if it checks off the box of living below your means, you don't have a problem with dealing with mechanical issues as they arise and, hooking up tanks and dumping tanks and adding water, then I say go for it. But you have to answer all those things for you. Only you can answer them. There's no right or wrong answer. To me, the only right answer is, are you living below your means, and have you fully taken in all your personal account? Everyone knows themselves. So I can only give a general answer because only you know you like you. So be honest to yourself. And then once you're honest with yourself, the answer is within you. Good question. Abel, thank you, patience. It means a lot. We love you, Abel. K. Buchan, minimalism is healing. Well, I agree with that. Yes. Tips on staying minimalistic. Less is more. Remember, there's a reason you started to, there's a reason why you went, or you're looking into minimalism. You're hurting, or you got hurt. So when something hurt you and when something didn't make you happy, you have to remember that once you heal. But that being said, you may have had a lot and then you minimalized, you downsized, then you may have healed and you may have went too far to the other extreme. So maybe you want to find a balance in between, right? So maybe you went from having a big house to a car, and maybe you've healed in whatever way you need to heal, financially, emotionally, whatever. And so maybe for you, and whoever you is, it's put your name in it, maybe you'll eventually go to just a smaller downsized house. I think each person, if they're going to have a house, no more than 250 square feet per person. So if you were a single person, your house, condo, or studio apartment shouldn't be more than 250 square feet. If you had two people, no more than 500 square feet. If you were two people raising one kid, no more than 750 square feet per house. That's how I do the math. But that's my overall thoughts. Patience is the key. Of course, Abel, things will get better, and don't think negative at all. Not easy, but I agree. K. Buchan, yep, I got you. Minimalism. Milano, yes. Kind of sketchy. Drogues and prostitutes. Yep, we know what it is. Mr. Deputy, hey, Sam. Hello to you. Fabio, yes, the 400 per month would be downsizing. Well, 400 per month, plus you have to consider RV park cost. So the average RV park is about $500 per month, average. And even that's low depending on the area you go. Now, if you go in the middle of nowhere, you can get $200 per month. So $400 a month plus $500 a month minimum in a decent area for RV park, plus gas prices for RV. So you're right back to, plus utilities. You're right back to $1,000 per month in a depreciating asset that you have to pay for over 20 years. So if that sits well with you, that may sit well with you. Like for some people like Milano, I know it works because that's his lifestyle. But you have to always, you're not Sammy, you're not Milano, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying that in an honest conversation way. You have to know you, but you have to add all cost. Like Jesus said, you don't build a house without calculating the cost, or else you'll start building, then you realize you don't have enough money and you look foolish. So $400 per month for the RV, $500 minimum per month for the RV park, plus gas, plus utilities, plus after a couple years old, you're going to have maintenance costs. You're right back to $1,000 per month in a depreciating asset. You got to think about that. Nothing wrong with that if you still say, look, it's a go for me. So I'm not discouraging you. I'm just giving you full perspective. Angelina gave something babazazi. I'm not mad at that. All right, guys. That's the live feed for tonight. I'm going to keep it moving, make sure I get my sleep schedule. It was a little bit of a different tone and style of a live feed. Sometimes they're very intense, sometimes they're very laid back. But all I can tell you is I have to be authentic to how I feel at that time. If it's intense, I'm going to give you intensity. If it's laid back, I'm going to give you laid back. If it's about talking about renting or buying or home base, I'm going to talk about that. If it's talking about MILFs, I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to be true to the moment, and that's usually when you're your best. Some people will like it, some people won't. Be yourself, always. Liz, thank you for that positive comment. Thank you for everyone. You guys, girls, and robots, you make it magical with your comments. Thank you, Vivio. Thank you, everyone. Love, respect, and peace. And we go from there. Forward.